And now we have nothing. 4 years I'm outside. I need help, and nobody helps me now.
I don't want to be out here no more. I'm starting to get sick. I'm shaking real bad.
I haven't been able to go out there and try to really get nothing to eat because it's just too cold.
The way I see it, if you're homeless, you have to try to survive. You know, help each other, I guess. Best way you can.
It's rough. It's really rough. It's getting cold.
I woke up one morning and realized something was wrong. That was the moment I understood winter does not negotiate. In most American cities, homelessness is already hard. In Anchorage, Alaska, winter can turn into a race against time. When temperatures plunge and daylight disappears early, the street becomes more than uncomfortable. It becomes dangerous. Not because people are weak, not because they failed, but because the human body can only handle so much cold, so many wet nights, so many hours without safe sleep. Anchorage looks like a strong city on paper, a place with jobs, trucks, military history, and wide roads built for long winters. But behind that image is another Anchorage, one most visitors never see. It is the warming lobby that stays open overnight because there are not enough beds. It is the long line at the soup kitchen that forms early, not for preference, but for survival. It is the person who used to have a home, a routine, and a future, now holding a backpack like it is the last stable thing left. Some winters, local reporting and community providers describe hundreds or even thousands of people struggling without stable shelter in Anchorage, with far fewer indoor spaces than needed. In conditions like these, even small numbers can carry enormous weight. This is Homeless US, and today, we are in Anchorage during the winter of 2025. We are not here to shame anyone. We are not here to turn pain into entertainment. We are here to listen carefully and ask a question that matters in every city, but feels sharper in the far north. How does a place this vast, this resource-rich, and this resilient still end up with people queued just to stay alive? Stay with us until the end, because what happens in Alaska is not only an Alaska story. It is a mirror, and the reflection is America. Chapter 1. The first test. The cold does not wait. In Chicago, winter does not arrive politely. It arrives with wind that cuts off Lake Michigan like a blade. It arrives with temperatures that can drop fast and stay low for days. It arrives with wet air that creeps into clothing and refuses to leave. When a cold snap hits, the city shifts into emergency mode. Warming centers open in public buildings like libraries, park facilities, police stations, and community spaces. Hotlines and city lines remind residents to call for help if someone seems at risk. On paper, it sounds like a safety net. On the street, it can still feel like a race. Because warming centers are not always open all night. Because transportation is not always available. Because someone who is exhausted may not be able to cross the city to reach the one place with space. Because rules and capacity limits can still shut people out. And because fear is real. Some people avoid crowded spaces because they have been robbed before. Some avoid shelters because conflict escalates quickly when too many people are packed into one room. Some avoid any system that requires paperwork because they lost their identification months ago and have no safe place to store documents, even if they replace them. So people make difficult choices. They ride transit as long as they can. They walk all night to stay warm. They sleep in stairwells until someone forces them out. They sit upright because lying down in the cold can pull the body toward dangerous sleep. A woman told us, in paraphrased testimony, "I don't want to be out here anymore. I'm shaking. I'm getting sick. I need help." She is not asking for luxury. She is asking for survival. And once the cold gets into your bones, survival becomes a full-time job. Chapter 2. The scale. Why this is not a small problem. Chicago's homelessness problem is not one single number. Different counts measure different realities. Annual one-night counts are useful, but they miss people who are doubled up with friends, rotating between couches, or staying in places that are hard to reach. School-based counts often capture family homelessness differently. Service providers may track unique individuals over a year, not just one night. That is why numbers in public conversation can sound confusing. But there is one truth behind all of them. A lot of people in Chicago do not have stable housing. Your transcript uses a large annual figure, describing tens of thousands of people experiencing homelessness over the course of a year. Whether the exact number is debated or measured in different ways, the scale is still enormous. Enough people to fill a stadium. Enough people that this is not a few cases. Enough people that you cannot blame it on individual failure without ignoring reality. And the crisis is not only adults. A significant share of people affected are young. Children and teenagers. Students who still do homework while living in shelters, cars, or temporary spaces. Kids who wake up in one place and fall asleep in another, learning instability before they learn safety. In winter, the question becomes brutal. What does a city teach its children about human worth when a suitcase must always be ready? If a child has to memorize shelter rules before they memorize times tables, something is broken. Not in the child, in the system around them. Chapter 3. A history that still has consequences. Chicago is famous for rebuilding. From fire to industry. From railroads to finance. From old brick neighborhoods to new glass towers. But not everyone was rebuilt along with the city. Chicago's history includes segregation, disinvestment, and policies that concentrated poverty in certain neighborhoods for generations. The old red lines may not exist on paper the same way, but the effects still show up in income gaps, health outcomes, and housing insecurity. And in neighborhoods where the margin is already thin, one shock is enough. A surgery, a layoff, a rent jump, a landlord selling the building, a spouse leaving, a car breaking down. That one shock is not minor when your budget has no buffer. We met a man we'll call Marcus, a composite profile based on common patterns. His details are adjusted to protect privacy, but his story represents something real. Marcus worked for years. He repaired engines. He kept machines running. He did the kind of labor that builds cities. Then his health changed. A surgery became time off. Time off became missed wages. Missed wages became late rent. Late rent became notices. Notices became eviction. Marcus did not describe it with big words. He said, in paraphrased testimony, I worked for years. One medical problem, and everything disappeared. That is not laziness. That is exposure. And in Chicago, exposure is not only about weather. It is about how close people live to the edge. Chapter 4, Root Causes, the math that pushes people out. When people ask, why are there so many people homeless? They often want one answer. But the truth is layered. Housing costs, rents rise, affordable units disappear. Vacancy stays tight in the neighborhoods people can actually access. Landlords raise prices because the market allows it. A two-bedroom can cost far more than a working family can safely carry, especially when wages do not rise at the same speed. And when rent consumes a huge share of income, stability becomes fragile. You are not irresponsible. You are trapped in math, wages, and job insecurity. Plenty of people work, but work does not always protect you. Hours get cut, schedules change, gig work dries up, health issues interrupt income. For people living paycheck to paycheck, a short gap can become homelessness. Healthcare and mental health care. Chicago has major hospitals, but access to mental health care and long-term support can still be difficult, especially for people with limited insurance or no stable address. If someone loses housing and is also carrying trauma, anxiety, or depression, they may struggle to navigate appointments, paperwork, and wait lists. And here is the cruel loop. Homelessness makes mental health worse. Poor mental health makes it harder to regain housing. Low-income housing shortage. Even when programs exist, demand can overwhelm supply. Waiting lists stretch long. Eligibility rules can be strict, and temporary solutions can become years. Every affordable unit becomes a competition between people who are all exhausted, not because they want to compete, because there are not enough doors. Chapter 5, The Human Cost. Rooms without privacy, childhood without stability. Now, we meet Rosa, another composite profile based on widely reported family homelessness patterns. Rosa is a mother. She has 2 children. In our story, she is living in a family shelter. Her children each have a small rolling suitcase, the kind meant for a weekend trip. But for them, it holds everything. At night, Rosa folds coats carefully because the shelter rules matter. Where you place your items matters. When you line up matters. How you speak to staff matters. Curfews matter. And in the middle of all that, Rosa is trying to create something normal. A bedtime routine, a calm voice, a sense that school still matters. One child says, paraphrased, I just want a wall where I can put my drawings. That sentence is small, but it carries everything. A wall means permanence. A wall means a home that will still be there tomorrow. A 10-year-old boy looks at his suitcase and says, paraphrased, I hate it. It always has to be ready. That is what homelessness does to children. It turns the future into a packing list. And then there are the people outside. We met a woman we'll call Sarah, a composite profile built from common adult homelessness experiences in Chicago. Sarah once had an apartment and a routine. Then something changed. Rent increased. A job became unstable. A relationship ended. A medical bill appeared. Any one of these can start to fall. Now, she sits near a transit station, trying to keep her hands warm in pockets that are not enough. Sarah says, paraphrased, I never thought I would sleep outside in the city I was born in. But there is nowhere else. That is the sound of someone who did not choose this. That is the sound of someone who ran out of room. Chapter 6, City Response. Big plans, real gaps. Chicago is not doing nothing. There are shelters. There are warming centers. There are outreach teams. There are nonprofits providing food, medical care, and case management. There are housing programs designed to move people into stable homes. There are also big strategies, big frameworks, big maps. But winter exposes the difference between strategy and capacity. If the system is short thousands of beds, then people will still be outside. If outreach funding runs out, fewer staff will find people before disaster hits. If housing placement moves slowly, shelters fill and stay full. If supportive housing supply is limited, people with serious health needs remain stuck. And when the city tries to optimize by shifting resources between groups, the system can become tense. Because you cannot squeeze new demand into a system already stretched thin without someone losing a spot. This is not an argument about who deserves help. It is a reality about capacity. If you do not have enough beds, you do not have enough beds. And if you do not have enough permanent homes, emergency systems become a revolving door. A city can spend huge money and still fail if too much goes to short-term management instead of long-term stability. This is why people get angry. Taxpayers wonder where the money went. Neighbors worry about safety. People experiencing homelessness wonder why help always arrives late. And the worst outcome is when public frustration turns into cruelty. Because cruelty does not create housing. It does not create treatment. It does not create beds. It only makes it easier to ignore the people freezing outside. Chapter 7, Community Power, the work that happens without cameras. Now we go to the part of the story that rarely gets enough credit. The community response. A small church keeps its lights on late. Hot trays of food steam in the cold air. A line forms quietly, not with chaos, but with patience. A volunteer says, paraphrased, "I can't fix the whole system, but tonight, nobody should sleep hungry." That is not a solution for homelessness, but it is a barrier against despair. In another part of the city, a mobile outreach effort parks near a known gathering area. Nurses check hands and feet. Volunteers offer socks, water, basic supplies, and information. No speeches, no spotlight, just human contact. A person in line says, paraphrased, "I don't just need food. I need to feel like the world still sees me." This is what mutual aid can do. It can keep someone alive long enough to reach the next step. It can restore dignity in a moment designed to erase it. It can remind someone that they are still a person, not a problem. But community groups cannot replace housing policy. They can fill gaps. They cannot build thousands of units alone. They cannot run a full health system alone. Which brings us to the uncomfortable truth. Chicago has resources. Chicago has talent. Chicago has organizations that know what works. So the real question becomes, what does the city choose to prioritize when winter arrives? Chapter 8. What would actually change this? If we strip away the slogans, the path becomes clear. First, keep people housed before they fall. Prevention is cheaper than recovery. Short-term rental assistance, eviction prevention, legal support, mediation, emergency help for utility shutoffs. Most people do not need a program. They need a bridge over one bad month. Second, expand real, stable housing pathways. Emergency beds save lives in winter, but they are not the finish line. People need permanent housing options. Supportive housing for people with health needs. Affordable units that do not require impossible waiting periods. Third, improve health and mental health access that matches reality. If someone is homeless, they may not have a phone. They may not have stable transportation. They may not have safe storage for medication. Care has to meet people where they are. Mobile clinics, walk-in options, coordinated case management. Fourth, protect families from the shelter maze. Families need stability. Children need routine. Shelter systems must reduce barriers that punish normal life events, like a late bus or a sick child. Fifth, treat people with dignity, even when policy is messy. This costs the least. It changes everything. Dignity is not pretending the crisis is fine. Dignity is refusing to dehumanize the people caught inside it. Outro. Noah is born ito is sleepy in the is no. Chicago will keep shining at a distance. The skyline will stay bright. The towers will keep reflecting light off the lake. The city will keep calling itself world-class. But a world-class city is not measured only by its buildings. It is measured by whether people can survive the winter. Because no one is born to sleep on wet cardboard. No one is born to raise children out of a suitcase. No one is born to shiver through the night, hoping morning comes fast. If you watch this far, do not let the story end when the video ends. Share this episode so the truth travels further than the cold. Leave a comment with one policy you believe Chicago should prioritize this year. And subscribe to Homeless US, because witnessing matters and silence is expensive. We cannot fix Chicago in one documentary, but we can refuse to look away. And sometimes, refusing to look away is where change begins.